Hello. Welcome back to Trading Triangle. It is once again me, Sean, and Kaye. Kaye, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing great, man. And what a great start to the Olympics if you are watching.
I'm not really. I saw some highlights from yesterday, and looks like the UK are doing pretty well so far. How are the US doing?
Well, US is doing pretty well. I think they will start to pick up a little bit later in the as the days goes by because you'll have gymnastics, you'll have basketball, you'll have rowing, skiing, not skiing, sorry, rowing, sailing, and they're going to start picking things up as the days go by. But yeah, it's just amazing so far.
I think we're pretty good at rowing as well, so we go toe to toe there, or boat
Yeah,
to boat. I
and
suppose.
there's a rivalry between US and Australia when it comes to swimming, so it's
Yeah,
going
no,
to be
definitely.
very interesting to see that.
Awesome. Let's jump into this then. So we obviously just a couple of guys on the internet talking about stocks, looking at charts, giving our opinions, or perspectives, should I say? And yeah, none of it's obviously financial advice. We're just here to have a little bit of fun. So do obviously take it with a pinch of salt. When you're looking in the comments, we've got some requests that you can probably put in there. We go through them at the end every session. We go through a few charts ourselves, and then obviously gets the audience requests. So stick them in the comment section. We would love to hear what your thoughts. I think we've got a few already, haven't we, Kay?
We do have two of them already, yes. So I have my list running over here on the side.
Lovely. Cool. Awesome.
And
Right.
welcome to all the viewers. And hey, Irsa Capital, Eliashev, if I pronounce it wrong, sorry about that. Avi, welcome, guys, and all the other 100 plus folks on the call.
Yeah. So familiar faces. We love to see familiar faces. Keep coming. Awesome. Right. Shall we jump into the slideshow here, Kay?
Let's do this.
Right. Cool. Right. Let's get rid of that. Excuse me. Right. First up, we've got the kind of the map. It's looking pretty red again. Once again, I think the QQQ is down about 4 or 5%. We'll get into that in just a second. There's some big numbers on here, Kay. We've got NVIDIA down 6%, Google 6%. Obviously, earnings on Tuesday for Google. I thought it wasn't too bad for earnings, but it seemed to have taken a bit of a downturn there. So we'll get into that in a second. I think you've got a chart, haven't you, of Google?
Yeah, I do have a
So,
Google chart. And I mean, technically, if you think about it, your semis and your tech basically got hit from the last 2 weeks. Earning for Google was not bad, but again, it's just the rotation. That's what we are hearing, that the money's moving from tech into the small caps, and that's the cause. Because there are stocks in S&P 500, Dow Jones, IWM, like those guys are going crazy up.
exactly. So obviously we'll touch on that as well. We've got some earnings this week around small caps. I think SoFi is one of them, so that'll be interesting. But just before we jump off this one, we've got Tesla over here on the right. Wow, another 11%. Obviously that was earnings as well. So, there's possible buying opportunities out there, but I guess we'll kind of talk about that as we go through. Right, sentiment. We're sitting at neutral, but we were kind of sitting in fear for most of the week, weren't we? I
Yeah,
think. Yeah.
exactly,
So
exactly.
we're kind of switching back a little bit. Obviously, we had a bit of a green day on Friday, I believe. I think it was green, wasn't it? Yeah. I've been out of the market this week a little bit, so
Yeah, it was green. And I mean, honestly, if you look at the numbers over here, IWM up 3% for the week, QQQ down another 4%. It was down, I think, 3%, a little bit over 3% last week. So you're looking at almost like 7-8% down from the last 2 weeks in QQQ. I have not seen these numbers 462 in QQQ. QQQ was almost touching 500, a couple weeks ago. And now IWM, the critical level was 200. It's sitting at 224.
wow.
We do have a request for IWM, so let's cover IWM a little bit later in the when we'll do the
Yeah.
audience request. But yeah, I mean, some key events coming up. We have Jerome Powell speaking. It's on 7:31. I think that's a Wednesday, and Bitcoin chugging along nicely.
Yeah, we've got mega cap earnings as you mentioned as well. So we've got Powell conference. That's are they talking about the rate hikes or rate cuts? Should I say?
Rate cuts.
Yeah,
I think as the numbers for the general inflation, unemployment, everything is kind of getting in the right direction. I think there is the rate cut, and the rate cuts are expected in September. Some people are speculating that it could be as early as August, but I don't see how that might happen. But because you will have that meeting in September, so I'm assuming
yeah.
it's going to be a September rate cut.
I think there's a few people out there thinking that might not discuss it at all. The actual rate cuts in this meeting, just kind of blow past it, do the whole kind of typical political answers where they don't really answer the questions. So it'd be interesting to see kind of Jerome Powell's take on that on Wednesday. I'll definitely be tuning in. I finished work early here, so it'll be good. I can get back and watch it. Not like you guys where you've been working throughout the actual conference. But yeah, I actually get the opportunity to sit there and listen to him droning on for 2 hours. But no, I do love it. I do love it. Right, moving on. We'll move on to the earnings. Now, it's a big pack of earnings. I've just done a retweet on my Twitter, my X, which is at Sean Trades, and you can also get Kaye as well at Invest Kaye. It's a retweet of Earnings Hub, which is basically a platform where earnings are available. And you can sign up for them, and obviously they can give you AI descriptions and transcripts and kind of averages, etc. It's a really good website. But the reason I kind of bring it up is because there's loads of earnings, so much so that there's not on this page here that you can see in front of us. So immediately off the page, I can see SoFi, AMD, Microsoft, obviously a big one. Starbucks had a terrible earnings last time. It'd be interesting to see if they can kind of bounce back. I'll give you the second half of the week, Kaye. What do you see in the second half of the week?
Well, on the first half, I'm watching McDonald's and Arista Networks. Arista is the play for the AI infrastructure side. For the second half, of course, we have Boeing, Meta, ARM, you have Lam Research, and the big ones, Amazon, Apple,
Yeah.
even Coinbase, and Block. So it's just going to be a jam-packed week. And then at the end, Friday, we have, Chevron and Exxon that we generally cover on the channel. We haven't done it in a while, but it's just going to be a very busy week.
Yeah, I think Nate brought them up, didn't he?
Yeah,
Exxon
yeah,
and Chevron. He liked his energy
yeah.
stocks, which is, yeah, we missed those. But we've got, interesting week of earnings. I think I'll definitely be tuning in for sure.
Are you planning to do any lives, covering any earnings this week?
Not this week. A bit packed really for the whole of the end of this week, end of this month even, and the whole of August. So I'm going to be pretty tricky to kind of cover it. I might get some time to get Amazon done, but I'm not too sure. We'll have to
Okay.
keep that posted. Thank you, Ursa Capital, for punching in all of these ticker symbols. We've got IWM, BA, CCL, Nike as well. I hope you're writing all these down, okay? Because I'm not.
Oh, wait, I have my running list.
Fantastic.
Keep going.
Keep them coming. Awesome. Right, let's move on. I think we have the SPY up next. And this is a daily chart. Just want to point that out because of the QQQ chart we've got next, which I will touch on the TQQQ. Sir, I haven't missed that comment. But yeah, first up, we've got the SPY. Obviously, a bit of a red week, as we can see. We created a gap on Tuesday, I think that is. So that would be interesting to see if we can fill that in the near term. That's back up to 553. I think finding a little bit of footing here would be good for the SPY. Obviously, we've had a bit of a drop in the last couple of weeks, a lot of negativity, just negative momentum, I guess. So it'd be interesting to see if we can kind of get that bit of return to the mean, I guess. I don't know what you call it. But I wanted to kind of get back to 553. What are your thoughts, Kaye?
I would definitely watch the 537 level. That's a gap right there, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
anything that's a circle, like a shaded circle, is actually
Yeah.
a gap. Yeah.
So I would definitely watch that gap fill. Also for next week expiration, our put to call is 2.72. So relatively higher compared to what the whole week is going to be. And I think that is also because of the massive earning that is scheduled for this week. So it's both in the S&P 500 and Nasdaq. You have some big companies reporting earnings. So I think we definitely want to watch those levels. I definitely am a big fan of gap fills, whether it's on the gap ups or gap downs. So I'll definitely be watching that level. And I think from a long-term investing standpoint, I know we cover trading mostly, but I mean, these are the times when you have pullbacks of 5%, 10% in, indexed. I think always a good time to, keep adding to your position from a long term. So always keep that eye on the price. You won't always wait for a 30% pullback, right? Take advantage of these small pullbacks for your long term portfolio.
Yeah, I think the term is BTFD, essentially. So yeah, we'll see what happens with SPY this week. Big week, as you mentioned. But moving on to the QQQ, then we have the weekly chart I put up here, and I thought it was quite interesting actually because we've got two obviously very red weeks, much like the SPYs we just touched on the daily, but we just kind of tickled the 20 moving average, which is that blue line kind of coming through. And there's a little bit more kind of room down to that trend line. Obviously, the white line kind of going through the screen there, the white solid line, should I say. So there's a little bit more room down if we do obviously get a couple of negative earnings, especially around obviously tech. So I've been looking at these kind of key levels. You touched on TQQQ. I think it was Ursa Capital. So yeah, that's basically a leveraged fund for QQQs times 3. So if you enter it, obviously, if QQQ goes up 5%, then your TQQQ will go up 15%. That makes sense. So it's a leveraged fund, and yeah, I quite like it. I do trade it every now and then. There's also one called SQQQ, which is the short version, which is basically the inverse of what you see on the chart here. So some people like to trade that as well. Yeah, so I mean, from a long-term point of view, I mean, you mentioned it here as well, the BTFD type thing, as I kind of alluded to. You could have added at this point. And I'm not saying it's a good idea, I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but you could have done that. And I think that's fair to say. I've got to stop talking now. I've spoken enough about QQQ. What are your thoughts on this chart, Kaye?
So for QQQ, I am actually looking at the daily chart, and on the daily chart, we have a doji candle. Generally, doji candle represents the direction. Like it's not a direction, but it represents the indecision in the market. So kind of trying to figure out where are we going. And the reason is because you have all, again, repeating the same thing, we have those big earnings of Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, Meta reporting earnings. And I think any weakness in those, we may continue to see a downtrend. But if this provide a good earnings and a good guidance, I would say good guidance is more important than the, whether they beat the
Yeah.
earnings or not. We may see, what we want to see is a consolidation at these levels before we have a run up, because it's good that QQQ was taking a breather, and as the rotation in money is happening from the large caps into the small caps, we may continue to see more consolidation at these levels, or even see some down pressure on QQQ, at least in the coming weeks, until something changes.
Yeah, good analysis. Yeah, I completely agree. I think the volume is also ticking up as well. You can't see it because we're in the way, but there was a bit of a period of low volume. We'll try and clear us so we can actually see that. There we go.
Yep.
So you can see on the screen here a little bit of a tick up in volume in the last few weeks. So we will see how that kind of progresses, especially through volatile times. Right. Should we move on?
Yep, let's do that.
So my first chart of the week is Amazon, and obviously they report earnings, as we alluded to earlier, on Thursday after the market closed. Now, lots of talk about Amazon the last couple of months, especially obviously because it's forming this little bit of a wedge. It kind of broke out a little bit here, and then kind of when Jeff Bezos was selling a bunch of shares, it kind of went back down. I guess that's potentially kind of fear selling, should we say? Because is Jeff selling? I'll sell too. A little bit of profit taking. I think a lot of people kind of expected a bounce here, which is fair enough because obviously we've got a big resistance around that kind of 188 level, which is there. But I'm expecting it to kind of hold up this trend line kind of coming through the screen. And it kind of did on Thursday, as you can see. But obviously going into earnings, none of this really means anything, because it could go up 5-10%. Could also go down 5-10%. And there's a couple of points where I want to see and what I want to point to if that is the case. So quite simply, if we get negative earnings, if we break this trend line, I want it to come all the way down to the bottom of this shaded area, which is around 160. In fact, I think it is actually 160 because that is a gap fill from all the way back in February. So that'll be definitely on my eyes. I know it's a big drop, but it's probably over a bit of time. I don't expect Amazon to drop 20%, obviously, overnight. It could do, of course. It's a stock market. It can do anything. But alternatively to that, if it was to go upwards, I want it to break 188, which again, I don't know the percentage-wise. I didn't get it on the chart here, but it's probably about 4 or 5%, maybe slightly less, actually. I want it to come back up here and then to come back down and retest it and then make another move to 200. That's what I'm looking for with Amazon. Do you have any thoughts about Amazon? You think they'll do quite well on Thursday? There's a lot of talk around them, isn't there?
So the average implied move for the earnings for Amazon is between 7 and 9%, right? That's the implied move.
Wow.
So you're looking at what, 18, maybe $14 up, down, right? That's something like $14-15 of down. And then the level that you're talking about is actually the gap up that we had back in February, right? Yeah. So I think for long-term position, I'm definitely that I have that area added there, that I will add shares at those levels. But I'm not trading the earnings, especially after burning my hands with Tesla and Google last week. I'm waiting for I'm waiting for post earnings, because this is a little volatile environment, because the momentum has shifted from the tech to small caps and mid caps.
Yeah.
So that's the reason I'm waiting and playing after earnings instead of playing the earnings.
It sounds like you've been a bit wounded by Tesla and Google.
Yeah, no, I have like
Yeah.
I think anybody who says that every week is a great week, that's not true. I mean,
Yeah, of
we have
course.
had some rough 2 weeks for the QQQ.
It's the trader's mentality is how to get through that, isn't it? At the end
Yeah.
of the day. Awesome. Well, that's Amazon covered, and now we have Bitfarms. This is a crypto-related play. If you didn't get that already, they're a miner. I kind of like this chart. Obviously, it is kind of a smaller stock, so it's a very high risk. They're kind of sitting around 269, I believe, at the moment. But I've highlighted this level at 250, kind of a bit of a support resistance, as you can see throughout the chart with the circles. And I like the confluence that it showed just here. So we've got the line of the 250, we've got the bottom of the trend line, and we've got the 50 moving average as well, which is the white curvy line kind of going through. So it's 3 points of confidence there. And I actually did enter a trade, a small position around this kind of area, just because technically it looked good for me. I know it's well within the wedge, and it's probably not everyone's trade of choice. But ideally, obviously, if it does break to the upside, then fantastic. I can move the stop loss up, and it will just kind of be a profitable trade. And obviously, my kind of stop loss at the moment is down below all of these levels in a relatively safe area of about 220, 230, I think it is, top of my head. So that's a kind of trade idea, I suppose, from my perspective on this one. Let me know what you guys think in the comments if you think that, what am I doing? Obviously, there was a Bitcoin conference this weekend as well. So not too sure what happened to Kaye there. So I'm just on my own now. I will pop him back in. Can I do that?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
I
we
had
go.
a little bit of a glitch on my
Oh,
side.
okay. I thought I was going to go solo then for a second. Yeah, anyway, back to Bitfarms. So possible trade set up there. What are your thoughts on this one? Have you traded this one before? Do you even know it exists?
No, I did not know until you brought it up. So I think from your perspective that you're looking at, or if I'm going to trade this one, I'll definitely see if we come and retest that trend line. But you are basically planning to trade the upside on the breakout to at least to the wedge. That is what you're aiming from a profit standpoint, right?
So I actually want to break above
The
the
trend line.
wedge. So I'm getting in I guess, super early. Now, it's only a small position, of course. It's a very small, high-risk stock, so I'm not going to allocate, huge amounts of percentage of my account on this, not by a long shot. But yeah, I mean, the risk is obviously there, but I believe I've kind of got the edge a little bit on there. If it triggers out, it triggers out. That's trading. I'm not too bothered about that. But yeah, I want to get to break above this kind of level here, and obviously make higher highs kind of towards 340, 380, because the percentage on that from here, Kay, are pretty good.
So that's okay. That's an interesting the thought process on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like I said, it's not everyone's trade of choice, and it is a bit more of a high risk entry.
No,
But I
no.
wanted to bring it up because obviously people do this,
Yeah,
and
of
they don't
course.
always kind of play to the rules of kind of going up. Well, not rules, but their kind of thesis of coming up and then back down, retesting, which is what I would normally do. I kind of take a bit of
Generally,
a risk.
yeah, if let's say if I'm trying to trade this, like what I would generally do is I would actually go back and try to find a similar pattern, how it reacted before, and kind of make an assessment on whether it will play the same pattern or not again. And of course, again, we are trading, so we are taking calculated risk here on the position.
Exactly
But
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
again, you will have your stop losses, right? In case it breaks down through the downtrend line, you will have your stop losses there to get out of the trade.
Yeah, and it's very important to have a stop loss with every single trade because I think we've both been there before. If we haven't set a stop loss, especially in the early days, it's not nice emotionally and it's not nice financially either. So, yeah, with that, we'll move on, I guess. So that's it from me, from my charts. You can find me on X. I'm quite vocal on there. This week I've been a bit quiet. I've been pretty busy, obviously, with the life, I guess, generally. YouTube, same sort of thing. I go live every now and then, but that's kind of it at the moment. I do offer a newsletter which kind of stays on top of my swing trading portfolio, so go ahead and check that out. I appreciate that greatly. So yeah, over to you, Kay. What have you got?
I think the first one is Google. So
Yeah.
this is very interesting. I think the couple of things are happening with Google. As you can see, I have drawn two kind of gaps for Google. Those are mostly the gap ups that we have had. And now I think after hitting the 191, we are seeing some kind of a pullback on Google. Uh, and I'm going to actually see if those gaps are going to be filled or not. And of course, either I'll be adding to my long term position or we'll be getting into the trade depending upon how it plays out. Now, there are a couple of things that are happening in Google side. One is, of course, I don't know if you guys follow, but ChatGPT is launching experimental feature called Search GPT, and depending upon how that goes, they are going to insert that feature within the Chat GPT itself. So that kind of also spooked the Google side. Is because now you're going to going straight for the head, or the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is the search engine, because that's where Google dominates. So we'll see how that plays out, but I think for me, I'll definitely be watching these two gap fills for long-term position, as well as probably getting into a cash secured put on Google. Uh, my current trade is around 175, so you can see that I'm currently down on my current trade. Uh, but we'll see. We can either I can manage those by rolling out. For those who trade options, that's of course an opportunity. Because I do open trades which are at least 30 to 60 days out, so I do have some time advantage, and we'll see how that plays out. Otherwise, if it continues to go down, I might open more trades for Google, considering it's also a part of my long-term position.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to point out the RSI just to move us out of the way there. It's down at near enough 30, which
Yep.
is quite phenomenal for Google, really. I mean, you don't really expect these big tech names. I mean, obviously they would at some point. It's just how it works, but they don't go down there very often, do they? So it'd be interesting to see if they can get a bit of a turnaround, get some buyers interested back into the stock. I like Google. I'm in Google, so yeah. I mean, hopefully we can get a little bit of a move on Google. But just on the search engine thing as well, the kind of battle of search engines, I think Google will always be the biggest. It's in people's vocabulary. I'll Google it as an example. See what Google says, etc. And family members, elderly members as well. They all love Google. I think it's just all the rage of it. I mean, if they can get the young people on the side of things, then perhaps. But yeah, I don't see it moving
I
just
think
yet.
I think from a tech standpoint, it's not a zero sum game. There will be more competitors in the market. It doesn't mean that because ChatGPT is going to come with a Search GPT, Google is going to going away somewhere. That's not going to happen. I think the expectations on the company will get readjusted, and Google will take foray into other areas which are not explored yet, right? So I wouldn't bet against any of the Max 7. A lot of people were betting against Netflix. See how it burned a lot of people, right? They missed the train on Netflix. uh, you know a lot of people are betting against Meta when it was down to what, $100 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean the Max 7 for a reason. So,
Exactly.
right, moving on then. We'll move on to AMD. But this one's been a bit beaten up, isn't it? What have we got?
So AMD is again very, very interesting. It is anytime a stock that is down to below the 200-day moving average starts to pique my interest. And considering I trade AMD on a regular basis, this is one of the stocks that of course garners my attention a lot. Right now, again, we have earnings. I think there's earnings coming up for AMD. I believe it's coming up.
Tuesday.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tuesday. Yes. So definitely watching that. As you can see, the consolidation at the level of what, 160. The stock has been like kind of barcoding at those levels, and then we had that. Basically, all chip companies are down. It's not like AMD is down particularly. You have NVIDIA down. You have Broadcom down. You have SMCI down. Pretty much every chip company is down. So I think taking advantage of the high implied volatility that we are going to have, especially going into earnings. And if there is a further drop down on AMD, I'm definitely pulling a trade on this one as well. And my target levels are, around, if it goes down to 120, I'll definitely be adding to my long term position. If not, then if I target this level, I'm looking for an upside until at least getting back to the 176. That's the level that I'm targeting.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, finding a little bit of a buy signal. So potentially, if it is to drop further, especially after earnings, I would wait for it to kind of turn back up, maybe set a higher low. That would be something I'd like to see. Because at the moment, it just seems to be dropping day after day.
Falling knife right now.
Exactly. You don't buy a falling knife. It's just one of the kind of general rules within investing or trading. But yeah, I like the 120 level that you pointed out there for the Fibonacci. I like that a lot. I think I've got that on my chart as well. So I'll be looking for that if obviously it is to drop further. But if it was to get a bit of a good boost through earnings, then perhaps that kind of 163 which I think you mentioned. It would be good to get above that and stay above that. So interesting to see what AMD brings to the table on Tuesday after market close. Sorry,
Yeah, market close. And the same we can said about the RSI as well. RSI, if you remove us from the screen, you'll see RSI is also almost at the bottom level.
Yeah, about 30, just above 30. So
Yeah,
yeah, another sold off stock in inverted commas. So
yeah,
we'll see what
yeah.
happens.
We can see the same trend with all chip stocks right now. So those are
Exactly.
two my stocks. And let's get into, yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X at InvestK. I continue to post throughout. On YouTube is also InvestK. I actually have a video coming out if you're interested in Lululemon. That's one of the trades that went against, and I'll show how I'm managing that. So it's not always about the wins, it's about some losing trades and how to manage those losing trades. So that video will be out next week as well. And with the earning season, kind of kicking off, I'll be writing a lot more on Substack, so you can follow me there as well. So I
Yeah,
think with that said,
I'll
we
definitely be watching that Lulu video. It's
yeah,
important to
yeah.
manage the trades, especially when things are kind of going against you, which they have been for a lot of people in the last couple of weeks. So I think it'd be good for people to have a look at that.
And I think before we proceed to the audience request, this is a good time to kind of say, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Trading Triangle. And you are also watching this. If you're watching on Wolf's channel, make sure you subscribe to Wolf as well. And anything else, Sean, before we kick it off with our audience request?
No, I think you covered it. We'll jump into the audience request now. I think you've got the list, haven't you?
I have. So the first one is SPHR, which is Sphere
So,
Entertainment Company. What do they do?
I think put in the comments if this is your favourite part, because I've got a feeling it might be. It's always good to get some audience participation. I love doing it. We love doing it. So yeah, keep them coming. We may not get to them all, but we will try. And I'm going to try and bring up some comments this week as well.
So this company engages in entertainment business. It produces, presents, and hosts various live entertainment events, including concerts, family shows, and special events, as well as sporting events. Okay.
So what I see immediately on the chart is I didn't take the trade. You can see a bit of a breakout here, obviously from I think when we brought it up last time, it was a few weeks ago now, and I think it was Avi Sayed who actually brought it up the first time. But yeah, you can clearly see the move that's happened. It's broken out of this kind of trend line ish. It's not really a trend line actually. Kind of those two touches, and that's about it. Make a move above all of the moving averages, and it's just kind of coming down to retest it. I would like it to let's zoom in. Let's have a look. I would like it to kind of revisit this 20 moving average, and in doing so, I would like it to, if I can get the highlighter out, set a higher low. So maybe somewhere up here over the next few days, and then perhaps continue moving up. It's not a trade I would typically enter, and I probably won't enter the trade, but it's something to look out for if you're kind of holding through this trade. Because if that level breaks, then of course you've got a decision to make, in my opinion.
So from what I'm seeing is I actually went back a little bit all the way to 2023 April. So we had that massive gap down. The stock was trading around the 60.59 level, and then it dropped. That was a massive drop all the way down to 23. So, and the stock has been slowly climbing up. So there is a gap that we are looking for this stock. Now, generally, as Sean said, when stock has already run up this much, this is your risk to reward changes altogether. So if you entered the position somewhere around $32, yes, you probably have a lot more runway. Now, from the current point in time, going all the way to where the gap fill will begin is about 20%. So, uh, can it happen? Of course. But the risk to reward, again, that is something I I mean, if you're planning to take it, I would say having a good risk management on this one will be very, very important if you're day trading this.
Yeah.
So tight stop losses and continuously monitoring your position as you see it plays out. That's how I would take this stock.
Awesome. Well said.
Okay.
What we got
Next
next?
up is PGY, which is Pagaya Technologies. Oh, funny about a story. This one of my co-workers used to work for Pagaya Technologies.
We've had this one before, clearly, because I've got lots of lines on this one.
Yeah.
Looks like it's kind of set a kind of a bull flag, no, sorry, a bear flag, where it's kind of come back down and kind of travel back upwards. Let me just get rid of some of these lines. I'll let you talk to it for a second while I get rid of these lines.
No, go for it, man.
Oh,
I
okay,
think this
well,
stock also had a similar, ouch, gap down all the way from
yeah.
81 to, wow, 36. That's a crash.
So I think when we last brought this up, must have been a few weeks ago, because obviously this is where I've drawn the line. So we're probably looking about a month, maybe slightly over a month ago, and I wanted it to kind of break to get back up to here, I guess, to fill the gap, which it has done.
Yeah.
So now it's about kind of staying above the gap, and this last candle it's set on Friday is slightly promising. A bit of a bottoming candle where the buyers have obviously come in throughout the day and pushed it back up again. I'm trying to delete that. Let's have a look at the volume for that. Yeah, the volume's quite low generally, so it's not the best setup, but it's a possible one, especially off this line of 1450-ish.
And
I think there could be one to watch actually.
this one could be a watch because your earning is coming up on the 9th, number one. I think for most SaaS companies, and I believe this is a SaaS company. Yeah, it is a SaaS company. So for most SaaS companies, the key is if they are retaining the customers and are they growing, because what is happening with SaaS companies, and we are seeing across, the sales cycle is getting longer and longer for the SaaS company. So acquiring new customers is getting longer, and retaining existing customers is also taking a hit. So because companies or enterprises are not spending fast enough on buying new technology. So I think the good sign is that the 20-day moving average is, I think, has already crossed or is about to cross. No, I think they have just
Yeah,
crossed. They have crossed, and I would look at a run, because right now it's consolidating at the level of 1460, right? We see just a lot of trade, and I think we may see a consolidation until the earnings, and then probably if you're looking for an upside, I would target the 1837 level. I think
yeah,
the
it's
watch,
about 24% as well, so it's not too bad.
yeah.
And you
Okay.
could easily set a little stop loss around here as well, that kind of 13, 14 level below the most recent kind of candles here.
Exactly.
So
The 1392, the 20-day moving average could be. Next up is your favorite stock, Tesla.
you say I have a favorite stock every week, and it's always different. I love it.
Yeah. No, I mean, you generally cover a lot of EV
I do.
stocks anyway.
Yeah,
So
I do. I'll give
you're
you
the
that.
EV guy in our team. So that's,
Okay, who did that one? Was that? There we go. That's a capital. Well, Tesla is a buy. Jim Cramer says. So, does that mean sell? I'm pretty sure that does. Let's have a look at the weekly first. Let's zoom out a little bit, and we can see obviously the negative kind of price action around earnings. Get rid of volume. I don't always like volume on the charts. This also looks like a retest. So what we're looking for this week really is a kind of a recovery back above this kind of 233 level. I think we were talking about this before stream as well. Kind of impacts of the earnings and where it could possibly be going. We want it to definitely hold the 50. That's first and foremost. So if we get a bit of negative price action at the beginning of the week, I want it to kind of head down to 210. Zoom in a bit so you can kind of see it. Head down to 210 and obviously make a bounce and kind of recover back up to kind of that 230 mark. I don't want anything too expansive. I don't really want it to be up to kind of 260. If it is, then great, fantastic. But I just wanted to kind of recover back above this line here because that would be ultimately the kind of best thing I think for Tesla if you want it to go up, of course. Would you agree on that, Kaye, or have you got something to add?
I agree with you. And if you actually switch to the daily chart, you'll see that there's a gap down.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
and I love gap fills,
Yeah,
and that is what you would want to target. Um, there is actually support at not support, but there is actually a decent volume between the 223 and 214 to 223. There is definitely volume, so buyers do step in. But again, if it's not able to hold, the psychological level of 200 is where you'll definitely see a lot more buying in. Now, again, if you were planning to buy Tesla at 250, these are good levels as well. But again, um, I think at least I was not expecting a great earnings from Tesla. Anyways, I think it was all about the 8.8 event of Robotaxi that was supposed to be the real catalyst. But because that event got shifted to October now, 10/10, I believe, a lot
Yeah.
more focus went into the Tesla earnings. I mean, it was kind of expected poor first quarter, poor second quarter. We'll see how the third quarter performs. But I think for now, I'll just watch the gap fill. And I actually do have a trade in for Tesla, so I'm managing that position right now. So
Yeah, I think there's a bit of negativity around Tesla at the moment, so we'll see how that kind of goes through. I mean, Tesla stock is very different to kind of the actual momentum anyway, or
yeah,
thesis. I think it just does whatever it wants, and I quite like that. I quite like the unpredictability around Tesla stock. Just before we jump off of this one, we've got a bit of a gap fill down here as well. So if we are to see some more continued selling, especially through the 200 mark, if we lose that, then this is the mark I want to see. It's around kind of 147. That's the gap fill, which is actually the bottom of this range as well. So that'd be interesting to see
yeah.
if that was to play out.
I mean,
Right.
it's going to burn a lot of people if we see $100 drop on Tesla, but it could happen. Anyways, one thing before we jump on, I think we always tend to watch what Elon Musk says, right? And now, since he is, clearly supporting one candidate, you generally see a lot more friction about from the other side of the candidate party or supporter. So
Yeah.
keep those things in mind. He's Elon Musk, anyways. Now, a couple options we can do. We can go to the index. We have two options: TQQQ or IWM, or we can continue with the Mag 7. Which one do you want?
I think we do IWM. We've covered the Qs earlier. I
All
did
right.
mention the comment as well when we did it, so we can move on to the IWM.
I
Awesome.
think, yeah, this is great, IWM, and I think clearly, I think we are seeing some consolidation. But honestly, as we always say, the trend is your friend, especially from an index standpoint. Uh, and if what analysts and everybody else are saying, that there is money rotation going from the large caps, mega 7, to small caps, I think we can see a continued run for IWM for at least uh, foreseeable future. Now, also another aspect is that if there is a rate cut in September, that is actually bullish for small caps, because now they will have money specifically to borrow money. They, because as the interest rate is cheaper, they can probably spend money on mergers and acquisitions. So I think IWM is setting up nicely for the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, it could be the new kind of SPY QQQ kind of trend wise. Not saying it's the biggest thing in the world, but trend wise, it could kind of slowly move up as well. I know IWM is a bit more choppy than the kind of SPY and QQQ, but we could see it kind of slowly move upwards. It'd be long overdue, that's for sure. We marked out the 224 level a few weeks ago. I think the actual call we had was about here. And we thought, yeah, okay, it'll take about a month or so to get up to 224. It did it in 3 days. So you can see how quickly the IWM can move. But getting above that kind of 224, I think would be the next kind of target, I think, in the near term. I know it's a bit extended, but the way it's moving, the volume that's coming in, like you alluded to there, I think it could definitely kind of take off again, potentially. Now, obviously, on the other side, we've got a couple of gaps here, which I've highlighted in the kind of rectangles you can see here. There's two gaps, one down at kind of 211 and then one bit further down to 203. Something dramatic would have to happen to get to 203, probably a rate hike or something like that, which, you know,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
odds are not on that. So that the odds are not there for that. But you never know with the economy. But yeah, we'll see if it can kind of come down here, maybe retest. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's the IWM. Maybe we can zoom out a bit, see if there's anything a bit more, evident on the monthly. So yeah, big monthly candle for IWM, and we're what 3 4 days away from the end of the month.
Yep.
That would be a really strong close if we can get above that 224 level that I mentioned before,
Yeah.
or thereabouts. And then it's all about the next month. See if we can break these highs of about 233. Yeah,
I think at this point in time, I would not bet against IWM, because of just the general sentiment of the money being rotated from the large to small caps, and the expected rate cut coming up in September. I would say that I did miss the run. I always was thinking of getting in at 200, but I, of course, there are so many opportunities. You always miss a lot.
yeah, you can't get them all.
You can't get them all, exactly. So this is definitely to be watched. And honestly, I might even get into a trade if we see a little bit of a pullback to those gap fills at 210, 211. I might look into a short term quick trade. So,
Yeah, that's definitely possible, isn't it?
yeah.
Right.
All right.
What have we
So
got?
next up is Boeing BA.
There's plenty in the news about this company, isn't there?
Man, this is in my long term position, and I'm just like, uh,
This is the weekly, and it's below two major moving averages, the 50 and the 20, 50 and 200, sorry. 200 being the flattest through the screen, which is the red one. Technically, doesn't look great, or we are kind of holding-ish, I suppose, the 20 moving average. Actually, what I see immediately here is a trend line possibly forming, even from all the way back here, potentially. Yeah. So even on the weekly, we've got that trend line there from way back in 2022, 2 years ago, actually, pretty much from where we are now. If we can break that, then obviously, I don't want to say it, but it could be more downside.
I think the problem with Boeing is, apart from being the stock price itself, it's just the fundamental problems of Boeing and the management and how things have been handled. I think since the pandemic, since Boeing fell in the pandemic, it's just been a nightmare for this company. I mean, they have operated under 200 moving average, for months and months and months. I mean, this entire year they have been under the 200 moving average. I mean, they went under 200 moving average on 16th January, and the stock has been trading below 200 days since then.
Yeah.
um yeah, I mean, from a long term perspective, I'm still bullish on Boeing, but I mean, at this point in time, I have other opportunities, I think, in the market which are much better. So okay, moving on, next one, CCL.
Just one thing on Barrier. I've never been from perspective point of view, I've never been into the airlines at all. I've never wanted to, trade them, own them, invest in them at all. For some reason, it's just not really my
This is
thing.
also a defense play, because they do produce equipments for defense.
Mm. Right.
Next up is
CCL.
CCL, yeah, Carnival Cruise Line. That
Um,
that's a I don't like the last two candles, honestly. Last
the
three.
last two candles are quite dramatic, aren't they? They must have had news.
Well, the earning was on 625, so let me see what was the news.
We've got a price target adjustment from 25 to 23, but that doesn't really result in that particular move, especially if it's down to kind of 17, which it is now. Um, but it has had quite a big run, really. It was gone from 14 from the beginning of May to where it is, well, even actually a few days ago to 19. That's a pretty big move for a company like this, isn't it?
I think they are also on the list of the most shorted stocks.
Oh, okay.
I wonder.
So everyone's kind of hoping for a short squeeze then.
Yeah. So short interest as a percentage of float is about 8. So it's not that bad of a short interest. It's only 8%. Because we have seen other companies with almost 20% short interest.
I've
But
been,
interestingly, they have a buy rating from analyst on the stock. Um, the earnings is coming up on end of September, 9/27, so it's pretty far away. Uh,
I've been interested around that kind of $16 level
I
because you've
yeah,
got the trend line and the 200 moving average there.
yeah, I agree with that on.
So that's technically what I'd be looking for. Now, if it breaks that, it's a potential short, but then you've got some kind of big buying areas where the volume clearly comes in. Looking at these candles, so it's going to be a pretty tricky short if you are going to short that, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, I think the current level, you have a pretty good volume, and you have, I would say, if it breaks that, the volume at next level of 1670, there is not much volume. Then the volume starts to pick up at around 1594. So you could see a further drop.
Mm.
And if you look at the last candle, it's kind of a doji candle. So we'll see
Yeah, a
if
little bit. Yeah,
yeah, right. Okay, moving on. Next one is our favorite Nike, or at least my favorite Nike.
your favourite. You can talk to this one straight away if you like. I've already got two lines on this one, and they are all the way up here.
I mean, and so Nike, Lululemon, man, Starbucks, it's just been a disaster after disaster for these companies. I mean, um, We definitely have. We are now. I think after that big gap down, we are seeing a good consolidation. If yeah, is
I've
that a
changed it to daily. This is a weekly.
weekly? Yeah, if you switch to daily, you'll see that we, of course, that massive gap down post earnings.
Yeah.
I think the stock is slowly trying to consolidate at these levels. So it's still not clear yet. Can we see further downside? Potentially, but I would like to continue seeing it consolidate at these levels until we see some kind of a catalyst for Nike. I mean, I'm not going to bet against Nike. It's not like it's the end of the world for Nike. These things often happen for apparel or these kind of stocks. It's the China market that also kind of spooked investors because the stock was pretty down on the China event. But as the economy picks up, and eventually it will at some point in time, we see strong performance in those areas. We could see Nike going back. Again, that's a massive gap that needs to be filled. And I'll be targeting those gaps from a long term position as well as from a trading standpoint. But the key is to have the consolidation phase over here on Nike.
Yeah, got a little bit of a channel forming, but nothing too concrete. Yeah, I'd be staying away from this one personally.
All right, next up is ARM. So we have actually two requests for the chips. So we can cover two back to back these two requests, and then we can switch to the other request. Okay,
Cool.
go for it, man. This one.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a clear possible retest here. I mean, you've got this line here, which is around 149. You could bring it a bit lower, I suppose, if you wanted to kind of touch this area as well. Kind of 147. Yeah, 147. And you can kind of see in recent trading, especially the last 2 days, it's kind of fighting around that 147 line. You can kind of see a good amount of buying that kind of came in on Thursday, which I do like to see. Are we getting another opportunity? We obviously had a gap up on the Friday, and we came back from 155 all the way back down to kind of 148. Is that an opportunity to get in? Because obviously we're at the 50-minute average, we're kind of at that kind of support resistance line, and then obviously we're looking at this kind of line up here of 173. Maybe even you could play it to the 20-moving average, which is about 168, which represents a percentage move wise, if you are going to trade that potentially, about 13%, which is nothing to scoff at because obviously with a stock like this, it could happen in a couple of days. So you could day trade that, you could hold it overnight. Obviously, you're paying a little bit of fees wise, but it obviously that's kind of due to your risk preference, etc. But the opportunity is there. On the other side of things, if it was to break the 147 line, where do we see the support? Possibly around this sort of area. Draw that, so that's 121. And then from here down to there, it's about a similar sort of percentage, around 15, 16%. So there's an opportunity there as well. So you can play both ways here on ARM, at least from my point of view. What do you see on ARM? You interested in this one?
No, I think it's a similar setup. I think the current level is a very key level, especially sitting at the 50-day moving average, those two bars. So I would definitely like to see consolidation and I guess a breakout from that level. Because if we see further breakdown from the 50-day moving average, the other levels do not have enough buying power, or at least we have not seen enough buying on those levels. The real buying starts to come in around the 116 level, and that's where the big volume shelf is.
Yeah, I've got my volume shelf is about 126. That's probably because it's just what it sees on the screen here.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, I'm not expecting it to, unless there is some major news of,
About
geopolitical
chips.
major news.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see that happening. Also, because we have seen some big selling, especially in the chip sector lately. Um, yeah, so I think that's pretty. Plus, the earning is coming up next week, so you probably will have a high IV on this one.
Yeah. True.
Um, you can play earnings, but again, remember, earnings is always a binary play, right? Nobody can predict it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very tricky to play earnings because, like you say, it goes up or down. But I've kind of strayed away from that. I used to do that back in my early trading days. I used to love it, but now I hate it. So, hello, Sebastian. He's late, but he made it. We
Yeah,
appreciate that very much. So,
thank
should
you,
we move on to
Sebastian, for
Nvidia?
joining. And we have a good 1.8K viewers watching today. Next was NVIDIA. Yeah, so that's the next request. Oh, I'm loving NVIDIA's fall here. We
Yeah,
covered last
I
week
bet you are.
NVIDIA on our, it was on my chart, and there is the gap down that we have is my long term buy zone between 96 to 101. That's what I'm
Yeah,
aiming for, a long term buy zone. That's where I've added mine. Um, I think if you look at the last 2 days, like that big doji candle the on Thursday,
this one.
and our last candle actually closed above that. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of seeing we could see a reversal here, but that 50-day moving average of 118 might act as a resistance. So we want to see how it plays out in the next couple days of trading. Since there is no catalyst, and I think they report earnings a little bit late, I think end of August.
they're always a bit later, aren't they? NVIDIA.
Yeah.
I think this line I've got drawn on the screen already from when we brought it up. There could actually be potential resistance here as well. So you've gapped up on the Friday, and we've actually pulled back from that line. So that'll be one to watch. I know we've closed above the previous day, which is a good sign, but there's also a bit of a negative around that as well from Friday's price action.
Cool.
But I very much like this gap fill down to kind of 96. That would be
Yeah, that's
I'd be
on my long term
buying
buy
there for
zone.
sure.
Yeah, 100%. Next up, another big stock that was in the news, CrowdStrike, CRWD.
Yeah, it definitely was in the news. It still is in the news, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it's, if can you trade this stock? So let me answer this from an investing standpoint. Um, it's below 200-day moving average, so definitely looks lucrative, right? Let's say if your cost basis was in the 300 or higher 300s, then it makes sense that you slowly dollar cost average to lower your cost basis. If you are trading, I would at least look at couple more data points on, let it consolidate, because when the event happened, it was a Friday when the problem happened, so the stock fell down, and then we saw the last week trading kind of consolidate. You want to see the consolidation at these levels before deciding where the direction of the stock is going to go. I mean, you could buy a put, but I don't see. I mean, we have already seen enough of a fall from a
Mm.
CrowdStrike. This is a close to a $75 billion company, so it's not like a no name company. So I'm pretty sure. I think last week what they did was, I think they sent a $10 Uber Eats coupon or something like that to all their customers, and some reported that it did not work. So who knows? But what I want to see is consolidation at these levels before deciding on the direction. Sean, what's your take?
I think my take on this one, this is a weekly chart, and I brought up just a simple Fibonacci. I don't have all the different levels as many other people do, and I think yourself do. I just had the 40%, 50%,
Yeah.
and the 60%, whichever way you kind of read it. But yeah, it looks like we're kind of coming down to that kind of 50% retracement from obviously the move back in just in the turn of the year of 22 and 23. And we've also got this low just about here on 238. So I'd be looking for it to kind of get back to kind of 238 and then hopefully make a bounce. But we are kind of around this 50 move average as well. But it's not really a stock I'm interested in, but that's what I would like to see if I was interested in it. So just getting a bit of my kind of loose perspective if anyone's kind of watching with thoughts around CrowdStrike, which they are because they commented.
All
So
right.
thank you very much. Here to learn. Appreciate the
Next
comment.
next up is Meta.
Okay.
They also report earnings next
Yeah.
week.
Is it Tuesday? Is it?
Yes, 7:30. No, Wednesday, 7:31.
Wednesday. Sorry.
So similar situation, I guess. The market is kind of waiting and watching. The last candle you can see clearly, it's a doji candle, and that is the place where the heaviest, the biggest volume shelf is. We have almost like 101.76 million stocks being traded at those levels. So um, I'm not trading the earning this time around, so I'll just be waiting and watching.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I mean, they introduced a dividend a couple of quarters ago, didn't they? And that absolutely flew. Oh
Yeah,
no, was it last quarter? Or was it?
I think it
No,
was
it's
last
this one
quarter.
here. This one here. Because you can see how it flew up, went up like 20, 25%. I remember it well because
Yeah,
I was watching online. So
I think for the most Max 7, the discussion is around the capex spend on AI infrastructure, and I
yeah,
think Mark Zuckerberg was one of the voices that said that you cannot slow down on the capex investment. So you might see continued capex investment from Meta. But again, I think it's a pretty solid company, man. I wouldn't bet against it. Folks did, and they definitely burned their hands.
Yeah.
And if you're looking to buy in at these are solid levels I definitely wait and watch after earnings, but if it continue to see fall, I'll be definitely getting more interested in Meta.
Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts on Meta. It's a stock that I've never really kind of looked at, really cared about, if I'm completely honest with you. It's just
It's,
always
it's,
one of
it's
those that
one of
kind of
those
escapes
stocks
me.
that people don't talk much about,
Yeah,
and
just
it just
doesn't.
runs away. Like Netflix is another one. People don't talk about it, and it just runs away. Anyways, moving on. If anything else, if not, then we have another one.
No, I think we're coming up to kind of the 1 hour mark. So if we do like a
Yeah.
3 or 4 more, then obviously we'll wrap it up. But it's been a great session. Obviously, keep the comments flowing through. Maybe not the tickers just now because we probably won't get to them now, but save them for next week because we'll be back next week at the kind of normal time of 6 p.m. UK and 1 p.m. Eastern Coast. Right, what have we got, Kay?
Ford F.
Ford. They had a bit of a drop this week, I believe. Yeah, look at that.
Ooh, did they report
Oh,
out? Yeah, they did. They
they
did.
did on Tuesday, I think it was. I've got lots of lines on here. I think I actually originally had a trade kind of
They
up to
missed
this one.
they missed
Done really well.
EPS. They missed revenue as well. No wonder. And that was a big miss. $88 million they missed.
If
Wow.
you're trying to compete with Tesla, it's going to be difficult for any EV maker, not just Ford. Obviously, Ford's a big player, but oh,
Ford is a big player, but I do believe that, I think they are struggling as well, especially when they are pulling back on the EV side. And interestingly, I think with the depends on who comes into the White House, right? That really depends, because what Trump said in one of his speech that he is okay with having Chinese car companies come and open factories in US and hire US workers. Well, if that happens, guess what? You will have Chinese cars in US. You will have BYD at least coming in and opening a factory there, because anyways the current tariff that you have is cars produced in China. But if they are already opening a factory in Mexico, and Ford does the same thing, they have a factory in Mexico, GM has a factory in Mexico. So BYD opens another one, then you'll suddenly start seeing a slew of Chinese cars into. I think it is inevitable. You can fight for a few years, it's inevitable. Consumers are going to win.
yeah,
uh, they want cheaper products.
there's more of
Either
them.
you increase the salary for people, that companies don't want to do that, right? So you don't even want them to buy cheaper products. Anyways, anything.
Yeah, I think just for me, on technical point of view, this is the monthly chart, which I found quite interesting as you were obviously talking there.
I was blabbering
This
around. Okay, continue. Yep.
this 200 moving average for the monthly chart has obviously acted as quite a bit of support throughout the years. This has gone back a bit of a decade now, but even in the last, we're looking at about 3 years, the constant touches off this 200 moving average just makes me think maybe if it gets a little bit of a pop back up above that, then maybe we have a bit of a rebound month. But yeah, that's yet to be determined. Just something there in terms of perspective. If you are kind of interested in forward, of course, not many people are from a trading point of view, anyway. Yeah. Anyway,
All right. So we have 2 minutes left, and we have 3 ticker requests, and we're gonna end it with that. So we have SE first.
C Limited. I
Yes.
missed out on this one a little while ago, and you can see the little drawings I have. I've left them on there just for now. And it's a bit embarrassing because I didn't get into this. It's a perfect, nice little cup and handle, as you can see on the screen. Very simple trade, come up to the next resistance level and obviously take your profit and move on. But I missed it. But do we have another opportunity? Straight on the screen here, as you can see, coming back down to that kind of previous resistance around the cup and handle back in the previous trading days. We are at that level now. What are your thoughts?
So
You
basically,
interested in
I
this?
mean,
Or
I know about the company. I don't trade it often. So you're looking for a bounce from these levels of 50. What is it? 64.50.
yeah,
That's for the breakout trade.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it's a bit of a loose one because it's not an immediate breakout. Because what I like to see is kind of it come back down and retest within a few days, maybe a week maximum. But this one's just a retest of a specific support line, so it wouldn't be a breakout as such. But yeah, I mean it's acted as resistance quite a few times around these levels, so I've looked to see a bit of a bounce. It looks like I like to get a bit of a bounce on Friday. You can see with the kind of topping wick, it's pushed all the way up to kind of 66,
And then
67-ish,
selling pressure.
and then selling pressure coming back in. So are we just going to get an extended move of this? I won't be entering this because, like I said, it's not my typical breakout trading kind of setup, but I can see why people might be interested.
All right, cool. Next one is also similar, Coupang, CPNG, and then after that we have Datadog, and then we wrap up.
Awesome. CPNG. I don't actually know what they do. I think Nate brought this up a few times back in the day.
Let's see. I've heard of it. I just don't know what they do. Let me tell you what they do.
Thank you very much, Enki, for the comment on SE, by the way. Keep them coming.
So,
and Alejandro Souza for Coupang.
So this is, they operate retail businesses through its mobile application internet website in South Korea.
Oh, so it's an overseas company.
I think C is also overseas.
It is, yes. Southeast Asian, Alibaba, Amazon, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a Korean as well, I believe. Yeah, it is Korean. Or it's Singapore. Let's see.
Yeah.
You're right.
So we've got a comment here from Sebastian.
Drunken Miller is a massive investor in Coupang.
Yeah, I think quite a few people are interested in Coupang. I don't really know exactly what they do. I mean, obviously you mentioned it just a second ago briefly, but I'd have to do a bit more research into kind of what they do initially. But from a technical point of view, we can see a potential gap fill. We're not quite there just yet. I will zoom in so you can see that a bit more.
Yeah, there's some more downside. I mean, for the entire gap fill to happen, you have to go a little bit more down. Let me see.
Yeah, it's not that far. It's only a dollar. Just over $1.
Yeah, you're right.
So that'd be interesting to see if it can fill there. So that could be a possible buy zone and get back up to kind of the trend line here. And obviously that's your decision whether you want to hold through the trend line if it possibly breaks, or if you just cut the trade there at the top of the trend line. So that's another kind of.
So that's a 5. So you were absolutely on the dot. It's 93 cents, and it's what 4.59%. So that could be an entry point. Last one, Datadog, and then that's
Datadog.
it. Okay, so very interesting stuff.
DDOG, isn't it?
Yeah.
There we go.
So I actually had a trend line drawn, and they of course broke the trend line. Let me just change my. See what's going on here. One second.
Thank you, Zovial, for the comment for Datadog.
There is a massive gap at between 82 to 96. Now, does not mean it's going to fill anytime soon. I think the 200-day moving average is coming up, or it's it's coming up. It's 118.12. So that's going to be a very, very good support level. If it breaks, that's where the problems will occur for Datadog, and they are coming up on earnings on 8/8. Again, as I've been always saying it, for any SaaS company, the future guidance is important. And if the rate cut is on the cards, you may see enterprise spending increasing as well. So that could be a catalyst for the Datadog or other SaaS companies to see a pull back to the higher highs. But as of right now, I think watching 200-day moving average is very, very important for us to see if it can consolidate or break down.
I do like this kind of level because we've got the trend line from back in November of last year. Obviously, you mentioned the gap there, but that's quite far away at the moment. Obviously, if it breaks down there, that'll be the next kind of interest point for me. But I think here, I know it's a bit messy, but it is kind of nice. Maybe if it can kind of shoot down to 115, if I potentially place a sneaky buy order there, and if it does kiss that, then fantastic. Essentially should kind of rebound a little bit. If not, if it breaks down, I set a nice tight stop loss, probably around about here-ish. Obviously, you can see why I would do that with the most recent kind of lows over here. Above 109, that's not a big percentage. That's a possible risk you could take there. And just simple kind of going back up to the top of the resistance. And then like the last stock we mentioned, Coupang, if it breaks above that, then that's a decision you've got to make whether you decide to hold or not. I think we'll do one more just because Sebastian's a loyal viewer and obviously we love him. So we're going to do AOSL just
Okay.
very, very quickly. And then I have to shoot off, I'm afraid. I need to eat some dinner.
Alpha and Omega. I've never heard of it. So let's see.
I think he's brought it up
Semiconductor.
before.
Semiconductor.
This is one that you should like, okay?
Yes, absolutely. It is. Yeah. I'm definitely adding this to my watch list. I want to study this one a little bit. Never heard of. Thank you, Sebastian, for the.
Technically, it's gone up really well, like all the other semiconductors for
Yeah,
the whole kind of industry. But this one hasn't sold off as much. I don't know if you agree with that sentiment, but yeah, it hasn't
I
really
agree
kind
with
of
you.
pulled back that much, which shows that there's possible strength there. Let's have a look at the volume. The volume's definitely increased. I know we're in the way. Let me just move us out of the way so people can see. So you've got the volume here definitely increasing in the last few weeks. So there's definitely interest there. Like you say, I mean, you have to do a little bit more into kind of research around this company, what they do, what their prospects are, where they can go for you to kind of idea around, a trade, whether it be a swing trade or day trade, or even long-term opportunity perhaps. But yeah, I'll kind of close my statement with that.
Awesome.
Cool.
Cool.
Any thoughts to this one?
No, I'm definitely I'm going to I'm going to add it on my watch list, man. This is something I need to watch.
Sweet. Right, let's go back to here, shall we? I've
So
had to close the window, and it's really warm in the UK at the moment. Obviously, UK houses are not built for this type of heat. So I apologise if I'm a bit shiny, it's because I'm a little bit hot. I'm going to take a shower after this. Anyway, right, back to the stream. Right, awesome. That was a good week. Don't you agree?
this was a great week. I think there was a lot of good requests. So thank you everybody for joining and requesting. I know that we could not get to all of them, so we'll definitely join early next week and put your request in early because we generally go from first come first request. So definitely do that. And considering next week is going to be a major week for earnings, my take on earnings is just make sure trade safely. If you are into earnings play, it's a binary play. Don't have a good risk management. That's all I'll say. Sweating Englishman.
Sweating Englishman, yeah, that's me. No, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think we've got earnings, obviously, big week. I tend to I used to get really involved in kind of play earnings and get really excited around essentially placing orders and see what happens. But at the moment, recently, the last couple of quarters, I've kind of sat back, taking all the information in and kind of made trades after the actual earnings reports, typically 2 or 3 days after as well. So just maybe take that approach, try it, see if it works for you. And obviously, trading is all about kind of trying different perspectives. So I'm muddling my words there. But yeah, that's it for me. Obviously, you've got Jerome Powell speaking on Wednesday as well. So just be careful around that kind of area. Yeah, I think we'll wrap up now. We will see you next week at 1 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. UK. And yeah,
Make sure to subscribe to our channel, Trading Triangle, and Wolf's channel as well. And we will see you guys next week. Thank you for joining.